In this video, we're going to explore how to solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. So over here is one of the most important equations you will use in Algebra 2 and in pre-calculus. And so it's worth going over how to use it correctly. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about the quadratic formula is, in order to use it, I have to have my equation written in this form. This is called standard form. And in fact, I don't want it written as y equals, I want it written with a 0 here. Okay, so I have to have all the terms on one side equal to 0. So you can see in this equation, my equation equals 20 on the right hand side. So to use this formula, I have to have it equal 0. So a good rule of thumb is, anytime I want to solve a quadratic equation, I have to make it equal 0 first. That goes for factoring, or later on, as you'll see, it's a good start for completing the square. So I'm going to rewrite this so it's in this form by subtracting 20 from both sides. So I get 6x squared minus 11x, 10 minus 20 is negative 10. So I always want to make sure that happens first. So you can see in this formula how I have A's, two A's, two B's, and a C. So those letters represent the coefficients of each term. So A is the leading coefficient, or the number next to the x squared. B is the middle term, the x term's number. And C represents the constant term, or the last number in the equation. So in this case, what I like to do is always like to write this down. So in this case, the A value in this equation is 6. I'm going to put A equals 6. In this situation, B is going to be negative 11. And C is negative 10. So the signs matter. And notice how for A and B, the X and X squared don't get written. I don't care about them. I care about just the numbers. So once I figure out what my A, B, and C value is, I'm just going to plug into my equation, my formula. So here we go. So X is going to equal negative B. So I think about it as the opposite of B. So B is negative 11. I'm going to put the opposite of that front. So this would be positive 11. Plus or minus. So B squared, so I'm just going to write this down. It's going to be negative 11 squared minus 4 times A, which is 6, times C, which is negative 10. So always write that out. Then I square root it because I find I write my square root too short. Then at the bottom, I get 2 times A. So as you get better with this, you'll take some shortcuts and you won't write this. You'll just do it all in your calculator, which is our next step. So our next step is to simplify underneath this. So this is called the discriminant. Not important now. I'm going to find out what that number is. So my calculator, I'm going to go negative 11 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 10. And I get 361. So I get 11 plus or minus the square root of 361 over 2 times 6 is 12. Now I wonder, is 361 a perfect square? And it turns out that is a perfect square. And so that's going to equal, the square root of 361 is 19. So essentially what the plus and minus sign tells me to do is I'm going to evaluate this equation twice. So the first time I'm going to evaluate it by taking the numerator and adding them together, then dividing by 12. And the second time, which is the OR, is going to be me subtracting the terms in the numerator and dividing by 12. And so I get, in my calculator, 11 plus 19 over 12 gives me 5 halves. So one answer is going to be positive 5 halves. Or the next one's going to be the same thing, but I'm going to go 11 minus 19 over 12, which gives me negative 2/3. So those are my solutions. So these are the values of x that when plugged into my original equation, using my calculator, should give me both sides equal 20. Another way to write this would just be x equals, and I like to write it from least to greatest, so 2/3, comma, 5/2. So there you go. Later on, we'll have another video that explains what happens when the value under the square root is not a perfect square. So how do I deal with that? So that should be good for now.